Hi everybody, let's get right down to our Torah lesson of the week. It's been interesting in America, elections now, Obama's re-elected. This lesson I'd like to dedicate to true leadership. What is really true leadership supposed to be? And hopefully any leader, whether from America or from any other place in the world, will study this week's portion, hope maybe get a little lesson on true leadership. But in order to begin and get really down to things, which I'd like to do right away, I would like to begin with the opening of this week's portion about Sarai Imeinu. As we know, it's so painful. Our matriarch Sarah leaves the world, and Abraham, the husband, has to find a burial place for her. If we look very, very carefully into the verses, we see that Abraham had his mind on a particular burial place of this field, this cave of the patriarchs. It was it was so obvious, that Abraham, what he wanted it all the time, he wanted to bury his wife in this particular area. And the question is, how did Abraham know this was the tomb of the patriarchs? That, as we know, what is the tomb of the patriarchs? That four different zugot, buried there. Adam Rishon, the first man and woman, are buried there. Abraham and Sarah are buried there, right? As we know later on, Isaac and Rivka, Yitzchak and Rivka are buried there, and Jacob and Leah. So there are four zugot that are buried in the tomb of the patriarchs, and that's why it's called Kiryat Arba, the city of four. That's one of the reasons. So it's a very, very special place, and the fact that the first man was laid to rest there with his wife, it's a very, very special place. But how did Abraham find the secret? How did he know where the secret of this cave, that they were there? It's brought down in the Midrash that when Sarah passed away, Abraham gave a eulogy to Sarah. And how do you eulogize her? It's what we're going to say tonight on Shabbat, our Shabbat table. Eshet Chayil Mimtza. We start singing Eshet Chayil, that proverb mentioned in the book of Proverbs, chapter 31. We sing about that. We always sing to our wives, we sing to other beautiful Shabbat, the song of a woman of valor. And this is what Abraham, he utilized his wife Sarah. And in that particular, if you look in chapter 31, you'll see that it says, Zalma Sadeva Tikachayo. Sarai Imeinu, our matriarch, Sarah, she had a desire for the field, and eventually she got the field. And what was the field? The tomb of the patriarchs. So way back, we look in the Proverbs, it's hinted in there that this is what she wanted. She wanted the tomb of the patriarchs all the time. And the question is, why did she so much want to be buried over there, Sarah Imeinu? Well, the Midrash tells us that when Abraham, in last week's portion, was running after to do love and kindness, as we all know, he was the third day of having a circumcision. He was very weak. He didn't have any strength, right? No. He couldn't live 1 second in this world, Abraham, without doing love and kindness. So what does God do? He sends him 3 angels, and they come, and Abraham, of course, is able to do them love and kindness. Now, he wanted to give each one of them a cow's tongue with mustard, whatever it was. What does he do? One of the cows starts to run away. So he starts running after one of the cows and runs into a cave. When he goes into the cave, he sees 2 beds lying one next to the other with candles over their heads. And who are they? They are the first man and the first woman. He meets them, and God reveals to them, you are a tremendous giver, Abraham, right? The Midrash brings a difference between Abraham and Eov. Eov, on one hand, Jove, he only gave someone when he asked for it. But Abraham would give everything he had. The best he had, he would give. He would run out looking to do love and kindness. He was the epitome. The greatest example of love and kindness was Abraham. So God said, I want to reveal to you a very big secret. When he came to the cave, he found someone that gave something even greater in a way. Who was that? First man. What did the first man do? He gave 70 years of his life to King David. If it wasn't for the 70 years that the first man gave, King David wouldn't came into existence, and therefore, what would be with Messiah, right? Messiah eventually is going to come from the lineage of King David and redeem the Jewish people in the world. What would happen if King David wasn't granted those 70 years of life? That was the greatest gift of all, is the gift of life. And this is what the first man gave. This is the first man gave 70 years of life. It's an amazing story brought down by the Chavetz Chaim. I think it's mentioned the name of the Chavetz Chaim in Radin. He was the one who wrote the book about to guard your tongue, a great Jewish giant. And there was a rabbi, one of the rabbis that were very sick, and all the Bnei Yeshiva, that the students in the yeshiva would say, we're willing to give a week of our life, a day of our life, a month, whatever. Some people say 6 months. There was some, they raffle off giving parts of their life in the prayer, just let the rabbi live to have more life. And they asked the Chavetz Chaim, how much are you going to give? He said, let me think about it overnight. In the morning, he said, I'm going to give 1 minute. And we see the lesson we learned from the Chavetz Chaim First of all, what the gift of life is, how precious every minute of life is. It's not a simple thing, the person to give away part of his life, because every life is so precious for his personal rectification. And there are stories, we all know stories, people willing to give away, donate limbs, etc., organs, for helping others. We know that it's such an amazing gift of life. And here, the first man is giving 70 years for the sake of King David, which is absolutely amazing. When Abraham, who's a giver himself, and Hashem sees his soul, how much of a giver he is, he gives him this gift and wants to show you the secret of that cave. And that's why Sarah, her whole life, she had a desire to be buried there. But it's so interesting that the Zohar Kadosh brings down that they didn't want, when it came time for Abraham to bury Sarah in the cave, they did not want her. And why did they want her for? The Zohar says that they were embarrassed. The first man and woman were embarrassed because they brought death to the world. They did not want to be buried next to Sarah because she was so much more righteous than they were, because they brought death to the world. So Abraham says, don't worry about that. We're going to rectify it. And how this whole being of Abraham is all about Gedula, all about Chesed. Chesed, it comes from the word Gedula, meaning greatness. And not many people's brought down in the Torah that word Gadol, meaning great. Only Moses is mentioned. It's mentioned also with the sun. The sun is a Ma'or Gadol. Why is the sun called great? Because the sun gives its light to others, to the moon. So giving is what really true greatness is all about. And Moses, of course, how he gave to the nation the Torah, his whole life of giving. And Abraham, how much he's given his whole life, as the examples we just brought down. This beautiful gift of giving was what Sarah, the matriarch, was all about. Abraham was all about. And this gift of giving is what a true leader, and any one of us, in any area of our lives, we have to make ourselves true givers, and be like Abraham, be like the matriarch Sarah. And this was the miracle which took place by King David being granted life, because that is a great, great lesson on Messiah. God is teaching us that the fact that King David lived 70 years and came down to this world because somebody gave him life. And if we want to bring Messiah, we want to bring about true redemption to the world, we have to follow in that same direction of being givers in this world, not being takers. And that all connects amazingly to the story of finding a wife for Isaac. When Abraham sets out, and he sends Eliezer, his servant, to go find a wife for Isaac, who was the servant he sent out? He sent out a Canaanite. He was an Eved, he was a slave. And the Midrash talks about the fact that Eliezer did not want Abraham to find a wife for Isaac from one of the Jewish, the Jewish family out there that he had to send him out to. Why? Because he had a daughter, Eliezer, and he wanted Isaac to marry his daughter. Why? Not because he thought Isaac was a great man. I'm sure he did, but he had something more important in his eyes, and he had the whole concept of what? Wanting money, grubby money. What do you want? He was saying to himself like this: if my son marries if my daughter marries Abraham's son, then I'm going to inherit all that amazing wealth of Abraham, because Abraham entrusted him with all that wealth to go find a wife for Yitzchak, to go out there, but to go to his father's home, his father's house, but not to marry, of course, Eliezer's daughter. And Eliezer said, if it doesn't work out, maybe if I'm lucky one day I'll be able to marry my daughter and I'll get all that money. So what inspired Eliezer to try to mess up in this thing, he didn't want the thing to work out too well, was what? Was the fact that he wanted his daughter to marry Isaac. And for the wrong reasons, right? Instead of giving, for taking. The exact opposite. But what happens, we're going to see how it's amazing that Eliezer rectifies himself. He sent out, of course what happens, he says, well, when she comes out to the spring, the first one who comes out, Rivka, right? Rebecca comes out, we don't know where she is at that point, comes out to the spring, to the well, and offers me a drink, and not only offers me, she says, I'll also give you your camels. And that's going to be the one from, for Isaac. And it's absolutely amazing that the word in Hebrew for ayin, meaning eye, is also spring. It's also the well. And when he came to the ayin, he wanted to see who's coming to the spring, because this was really the test to see if he's going to overcome his evil urge, or the bad eye, of wanting to take and actually give over what he brought from Abraham. He took over, right, the jewelry that he was going to give to her as a present, as a sign of making that connection between Isaac and Rivka. And that's exactly what happens at the end. At the end, when she passes the test, he gives it over. And what was her test? the fact that he really needs someone to give water, like Eliezer was a pretty tough guy, right? He traveled a long way, he was a tough servant, he was a strong guy. He didn't need her to give him water, but not only the fact that she gave him water of kindness, she also said, let me give more, let me give you a camel. So he could have done that. He was a little girl. How much strength did she have? A little girl, a small woman, a frail woman, to take water out of a well. He could have done a better job than her. But that just showed that her amazing intrinsic quality was to be a giver. And Eliezer eventually passed the test, right? He didn't fall, although he really had reasons of wanting his daughter to marry Abraham's son, but at the end he gave it over. And that's what it's amazingly, what is a Lavan? The evil Lavan, what does he say when they walks into the house? He said, Baruch Hashem, right? He blesses God, the name of God, right, when he came. And that, the fact, shows that a slave is usually cursed. But now the fact that he turned it around as being a Canaanite from the Cham family, but he turned around by becoming a giver, he was now blessed. And that was like a prophecy went into the mouth of Lavan to bless Eliezer for that amazing act, that he fulfilled the words of Abraham of finding a son. And of course it was all through giving. So we see as usual both sides. When God always has us in every lesson, both sides. Be a taker or be a giver. Always, the evil side, the dark side is always brought with the good side. And this is the lesson we're talking about. A leader, looking into this portion, could see a person could do something to become a leader for his own personal benefits, and to do things that will make him a big name and worry about his own personal name in the world, etc., etc. Or a person could do the opposite. I want to be a giver. I want to follow the path of Abraham, to be a true giver. What's in the intrinsic makeup of Abraham, that's special, and the first man who gave part of his life, and to be a giver, and that will really bring about the true leader of the world of King David, of that line. Only comes through true giving, and wanting to give part of yourself completely, to know that the strings attached to it all. And this is again a small lesson, a very big lesson, but a short lesson that we can get out of this portion. I want to wish you all a wonderful Shabbat Shalom, and we'll be in touch very, very soon. Bye-bye.